Good morning to whoever that is listening to and watching this video. Right now it's actually 3, maybe 4 in the morning. Let me check the time. Yeah, it's 3:50, so 10 to 4 in the morning. And I could not fall asleep. I just kept twisting and turning all night long. I went to bed around 11:30. Nah, it's more like 12 midnight, but I couldn't fall asleep. Don't know why, my brain just kept being so hyper more than ever before. This is actually the first time that I experienced it. And I just told myself maybe it was a good time. It was a good idea to get up and then start my camera, put it in front of me and start vlogging as a non-disrupted video, another daily vlogging or journaling style that I would like to try out. And I think the best topic for this very first video of me talking non-stop, and you will never see any jump cuts or any disruptions when I'm speaking to the camera like this. But what I'm trying to say is that the best topic for this first video is gonna be about my language, or maybe my speech dilemma, maybe speech predicament. It's been haunting me so much, and I know that a lot of people out there, maybe some of you guys are also experiencing the same thing. Maybe you speak more than one language, maybe 2 languages, maybe 3. Some of you guys can even speak like 4 or 5 if you're lucky. But me, I only speak 2. Vietnamese is my mother tongue, and English was the language that I started picking up when I was 26. So it's been a little bit more than 8 years since I started learning it. Well, now if you think that I'm only struggling with speaking English, it is not right. It is not true, because I find myself being stuck in being able to express myself in both languages, Vietnamese and English. Why? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I try to come up with a lot of reasons as to why I couldn't speak, but I still can't come up with the best valid reason or excuse. So a little bit about me. I'm now 34. I started learning English when I was 26, but I guess I started learning my mother tongue Vietnamese when I was a baby, a newborn, right? Because that's when I started picking up the sounds and the language, even though I didn't know, right? Most of us didn't really learn so much, but we did listen to all the sounds of the language around us. It's more like how I grew up in a family that I was the baby. And I had 5 sisters, and all of them are a lot older than me. They left the home when I was just a little. I was just a kid, and I didn't have a lot of interactions inside of my home, right? My dad passed away when I was 1, so I lacked a lot of like fatherhood or that upbringings amount coming from my dad's side. And so always found as a kid very inconfident. I always found myself unconfident as a kid growing up in that family. And I felt like my voice was never heard. No matter what I had in mind to say, it wasn't going to be good enough. It wasn't going to be acknowledged by anyone because I was such a kid. I didn't have a lot of backup or support coming from my father behind me or next to me. My mom was really busy trying to make ends meet, trying to raise us. So I think that's how my existing problems started. Of course, growing up in a family that had a lot of siblings, all raised and kept by only one mom, one parent only. We were of a poor family. My mom didn't have enough money to send me to an English center or a language school so that I could learn English as a kid. Apparently, it was really expensive to afford an English course. Given the island, the poor island that I came from, even though now it's becoming a much better place, much more attractive place as a tourist attraction for foreigners or tourists around the world. The island I'm talking about is Phu Quoc. It's the largest island in Vietnam. Millions and millions of people travel there each year because of how beautiful the landscapes are. But anyway, let's just rewind it back to when I was 4 or 5. It was way too expensive and the village was so poor. Not a lot of teachers, right? Not a lot of people who could speak decent English. In fact, none of the people that I was exposed to, whether they were my neighbors or any of the tourists that I saw or any of my friends or any of my teachers in all of the schools that I went to, spoke any word of English. Of course, the education system had English as a subject and everybody had to pass it in order to pass the class. But I didn't really learn a lot. And okay, so this is something that I would like to share as a very necessary piece of info as well. Not even just English. But the village that I came from was back then so poor that a lot of my friends just dropped out of school. Elementary school and secondary school as well. I remember me being one of the very few kids who completed high school and having a chance to apply to go into a university. Back then, going into a university is a big deal. And a parent would just go around the village or go around the community and bragging about it. But yeah, I was lucky enough to always be told to go to school and not dropping out, not giving up on school and education. And then just because I saw a kid next door that got approved and admitted into a local university, I thought it was an extravagant and prestigious university back then. So I was trying my hardest within the last 2 years in my high school, grade 11 and 12. And I got a pretty high score, also a pretty good foundation of knowledge in order to pass the entrance exam in Vietnam. Back then, if you wanted to go into university, you gotta pass the entrance exam. You gotta meet all the requirements in terms of scores. The entrance exams basically had 3 subjects, 3 tests of 3 different subjects that you gotta score high so that the school would look at your score, the total score, and it also depending on the band as well. For example, band A included chemistry, physics, and also mathematics, and you got a score high, so the school would look at your application and admit you. I was lucky to go to or to get approved to go to a university. My first university was the University of Education, where all of the students were trained to become a teacher. And I was about to become a chemistry teacher in high school. My entire life, growing up as a kid, I wasn't heard, I wasn't acknowledged for whatever little or big opinions that I had. Going through all of the school years, I was basically just existing and enjoying as just a brainless kid. And it is not an exaggeration. I was playing football, soccer. If you come from North America, just to clarify, it's soccer. I played soccer a lot. I played, cock shutter with my friends. I played a lot with them, but then they in school or a little bit outside of school didn't really acknowledge me for my existence and contribution because I was just way too little. I went to school a little earlier than most kids do. So basically you go to first grade when you were 6, right? But I went to my first grade when I was only 5. I was a little naughty and really hyper, full of energy all the time, frenetic. My mom didn't know how to handle me while having a lot of other things to take care of. Because keep in mind, having 5 kids to raise, she always had a handful on her plate. So sending me to school early was the only option that she had in mind. And I would return home and I would be adding more weight on the amount of stuff that she had to take care of. Anyway, so back to all of the school years and the problems that I had with my friends. I was just way too small. And when I was in grade 11 and 12, all of my friends, because they looked at me as a kid, while they were going through the puberty, they didn't acknowledge my existence or contribution. I was playing for my classes, football or soccer team, and I was being really, really good at the position that I played. But they didn't really give me any credit. And I thought about it so much. In order to afford that brand new pair of cheap soccer shoes, I gotta save the money a very long time. And then I played very enthusiastically. I scored quite a few too, but then I didn't really get acknowledged. And that's when I started being more serious about the idea or the belief that my voice would never be heard no matter how much I tried, no matter what I did. I always had this kind of notion of how to make my voice heard, how to make my opinions acknowledged. how to make people willing and patient enough to sit there or stand there listening to what I had to say. And that notion is about learning more and more. Of course, not having a father didn't really help with that. I always felt like coming from a poor family, didn't even have an iPad back then. Everybody was using phone, like brick phones. No smartphones yet. The internet just started to blossom, but it wasn't really that popular in the village that I came from. Newspapers, old school newspapers, were still the thing that people would rely on to learn about what the heck was happening in the world. And nobody was actually interested in knowing all the news and what the heck was happening in the world, right? Because everybody was just like trying to make ends meet. The village or the island that it was coming from was so poor around that time. Nobody cared. But anyway, so for me, in order for people to want to listen to me, I gotta speak about big things, important things, bulky ideas. The problem is, where was I gonna learn all of that from? I didn't have the newspapers. I didn't have like a lot of books, right? The school that I went to, all of the teachers and friends didn't really talk about it. What I learned was only about stuff that not a lot of people wanted to learn out of the textbooks. And then that notion just got bigger and bigger as I entered my university. When I was a freshman, I didn't really care about it because that was the first time that I went to a big city, Ho Chi Minh City. From the island to Ho Chi Minh City, it would take me about one day. I gotta take a boat very early in the morning to reach the mainland, and then from that point, I gotta take a coach for about 6, maybe 7 hours to arrive in Ho Chi Minh City. In my freshman year, I was just really glamored, right? Excited about how big the city was and how beautiful everything was, because that was the first time that I saw everything in a big city. I couldn't control myself. I couldn't help myself but being really curious about everything. I was living in the dorms with my roommates, and there was only one of them who was coming from the same island. But he wasn't coming from a poor family. His family, in fact, was really rich. Both of his parents were teachers in secondary schools, so they made decent money, decent income to afford him whatever he wanted. But we were admitted to the same university, and we were also admitted to the same dorms. So we lived in the same room. What a coincidence, now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah. But anyway, my point is that in my freshman year, I didn't learn anything. The notion was just going and running in the background, making me think and feel that I gotta learn more in order for people to talk to me and listen to me. But it was like extremely distracted and attracted to a lot of things. Plus, I wanted to sing, so I sang a lot during my first and second year in university, and I was a pop guy. I was a pop guy in my class, even in the entire department, the chemistry department. Whenever they had like a singing contest, they would think about me, or they would invite me to join. So I was distracted. I was taken mentally and physically for things that did not help me deal with how little my voice was, or how unworthy, invalid my opinions were. And then the internet came, and all of the social media things came. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody was captivated by that world, the world of curiosity and abundance. And once again, I could never sit still in one spot in the dorms just to study anything. I didn't even care about all of the subjects in school. All of them were so difficult. All the curricula was so difficult, but somehow I managed to pass all of them, including the English curriculum. All the English classes, I was always sitting in the last row because I didn't want the teacher to call me. That's what she was usually doing though. Like she would call somebody who could answer her questions, right? But she only picked, students who were sitting in the front rows, not way back there. And not to mention, I was always like put my head down onto the table and dozing off in the class. So the teacher, not only that she couldn't see me, but she wouldn't be that interested in calling somebody at the back like that. So I was safe. But I somehow managed to pass all of the English courses in order to graduate from high school. University. It was really fun though. It was really fun with all of the other ones, but I was never seriously interested in really crushing all of them or achieving high score throughout the entire class. I was fast in terms of learning because I remember for a lot of difficult subjects or curricula, I didn't spend, so each subject or each class would last about 3 to 4 months because that's how a semester usually lasts. 90% of the semester I didn't study. I also skipped some of the classes for a variety of curricula. But somehow, for only 2 days before I took my final exams, I was able to concentrate on the subject to actually gain the most out of the textbook. The knowledge that would be most likely to be in the test, I would just laser in on it and learn so fast that my friends couldn't help but ask me to help them, to teach them for a short period of time so that they could score a minimal amount in order just to pass. But still, given the speed of learning and how reflective I could be when I'm serious about learning something, or when I'm interested in something, I could never sit still to learn because I always was surrounded by a lot of distractions and things that I was curious about. And then the background running notion or idea or belief that I gotta learn more, the serious things, the most practical things that a lot of people want to listen to, was just neglected. But it's still there, right? It's happening at the same time. The duality, you want it, or your brain or yourself tells you that you should do some certain things in order to help better your life, in order for you to feel better, in order for you to make a living, even. But you somehow couldn't help yourself in doing it. But being totally distracted for some unnecessary things. That's why a lot of people don't learn until they hit 30s. And in their 30s, they would calm down, they would become a lot wiser, just to cast aside all of the distractions, all of the addictions too. And I think that's how nowadays humans grow up. I wish I could go back in time. I wish I could somehow be stronger when I was in my 20s, so that I could just, you go do your things. My friends, don't distract me. Just go. You want to sing? Go sing. You want to participate in that contest? Go ahead and do it. I'm not available. I have some important thing that I have to take care of so that my voice could be heard and my